Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending. Dr. Tamez, good morning. Do you have your PowerPoint presentation that you would like to share?
Yes.
Good to see y'all. Good to see you.
Nice to see everyone.
Oops.
Can you see
Okay.
presentation?
Yes, I can see the presentation, and then when you're ready to change it to the slideshow, then it'll have all on the one screen.
There we go.
Perfect. Awesome. Awesome. And just all right, perfect. And Dr. Dunbar will be on to provide you with the introduction, and we'll get started right at 12 p.m.
All right, sounds great. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Give Dr. Dunbar one more second to join us. And
So hello, everyone. Welcome to this ONR Roundtable. And we're really excited to have a research roundtable today on the topic of training at NINR and NIH. And this is a great program that we learned about this summer. It's been in existence for a while, but we had a great conversation with Dr. Pamela Tamez from NINR this summer, and I wanted to bring Dr. Tamez and her team of panelists of individuals who've done training at NINR to come and speak with our students and our faculty mentors about these exciting training opportunities and opportunities for research and scholarship directly at NINR. So I'd like to introduce Dr. Tamez. Welcome very much from NINR to Emory, Atlanta. And wishing that we were all together, but this is great to have this opportunity. So I'd like to introduce Dr. Tamez, and then she can tell us a little more about the panelists that she's invited to participate. So Dr. Tamez has a PhD in drug discovery from the University of Illinois at Chicago. And after doing her postdoctoral work in cellular and molecular biology, she held dual positions as the research assistant professor and director of external programs at the University of Notre Dame. She first came to NIH to curate the human reference genome at the National Library of Medicine, and then joined the Office of Training and Diversity at the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. So she's had experience in a number of aspects of number of components of NIH. And throughout her career, she's held a very strong interest in mentoring and inspiring the experiences of and opportunities for nurse scientists. She's currently the training director at the National Institute of Nursing Research and has a real passion for research experience for undergrads, graduates, postdoctoral scholars, as well as nurse scientists, and looking for ways to facilitate the resources they need to achieve their career goals in research. At NINR, Dr. Tamez is directly involved with developing the training opportunities and providing the programmatic support for trainees and nurse scientists. So I'd love to turn the program over to her and welcome, and we're very excited to hear about these opportunities.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dunbar, for this opportunity and for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here and talk to you about training opportunities. And I invite you to turn on your cameras. I know our panelists are on, Dr. Delia Sass, Dr. Sarah Mahoney, and Stephanie Chittister. And I know at least one person in the crowd, Glenna. So, you know, I invite you to interact, ask questions. This is a conversation. I have some slides prepared, and I'm going to go through them and offer resources, and hopefully together we're going to visit the website. And I have a few learning objectives for you that we'll go over. But in the end, I want you to be able to find the information, first know what is available, be able to find the information, and then talk about what opportunities there are, what it's like to be at NIH. And so I'm very happy that Delia, Stephanie, and Sarah have joined, because they've got the firsthand experience and they'll be able to tell you more. So let me start with my slides, and we'll get started. So can you see my screen? Okay, great. All right, so this is to tell you about opportunities at NIH and NINR. And the three things that I want you to come away with are, first, to identify what the training opportunities are. Where can you find more information about them? And then after you know about this, share it with your colleagues, friends, students, family members. You know, we want to open this up broadly. So let me begin by introducing the director of NINR, Dr. Shannon Zank. She's just about to celebrate her 1-year anniversary as an NINR director, and she's bringing bold new ideas and developing a new strategic plan. So let me preface everything by saying that this is a time of transition, and it's very exciting because there's some new ideas flowing in. So we're going to keep that in mind, that it's transition at NINR. So I'll first start by pointing to two websites. One is for the NIH Intramural Research Program, and the second is for training. So let me ask by, maybe you can put it in the chat, if everyone, can you tell me what the difference between intramural and extramural? Do you know what intramural is at NIH? Because it can be confusing. And let's see if I can see the chat. Oh, we've got a quiet group today.
Maybe you could go ahead and tell us.
Okay, so I'm bringing intramural up because it's an opportunity to do research at NIH. So you're familiar with NIH being a funding organization, funding institution. Yes, exactly, Erin, within NIH. So you may have written grants, F31, F32, you've heard of the K99. These are all grants that the NIH has available for the extramural community. That means you. But there is an opportunity to come to NIH and do research. And so I think out of the 27 institutes and centers at NIH, 24 have an intramural program, meaning they have investigators, they have trainees, and do research on campus. So if we can, I'm going to exit. Oh, I wonder, I might have to stop sharing and reshare. Hold on one sec. I want to go to the website, and I want you to follow along. And we're going to go to irp.nih.gov. Okay, let me see if I can share my screen again. I think this should. Okay, I think you should be able to see this, the entire website and PowerPoint. So have you seen that site? Have you gone there in irp.nih.gov? And I'm going to draw your attention to the tab under careers. So if we click there, since I know this is an audience of students and faculty, I wanted to bring up the opportunity of becoming a tenure track investigator, and even senior postdocs if you're thinking about opening up your own research lab. You can decide, to apply to NIH. So I'm just scrolling down under careers, and in this section you can see there's faculty level scientific careers and trans NIH scientific recruitments. Those are the two areas that I want to touch on. First is faculty level scientific careers, and this is a way for each institute or center to recruit for a PI, a program, a principal investigator to their institute. And here you can see listed at NCI, NIAID, Allergy and Infectious Diseases, NIDDK, they all have positions available. And so you can go through and see what they're looking for. And this means that it's specific to that institute. So let me go back to the career section and look at the trans NIH. This means this is basically 3 different recruitment strategies to recruit broadly to come to NIH. One is the Statman tenure track investigator. That is a once-a-year application cycle, and it usually comes up like September or so. And once you go through, if you've been invited to an interview, you go through the first, what would I say, the first screening step, and you're invited to interview, you would interview with institutes across NIH. It's not just one. It could be, you know, NIDDK, NIAID, NCI. And scientific directors and principal investigators would come listen to your talk and see if there's a fit within their institute. Then there's the Lasker Clinical Research Scholar. This is for people who have clinical credentials, and that means you, everyone here has a clinical credential or in process of getting their clinical credentials. And so this is a way to train or to recruit people who have a terminal degree and a clinical credential to enter into this very prestigious program where you get some career development and you're also recruited as a faculty member. And then the last opportunity is for early independent scientists. And this is a way for graduate students to jumpstart their career. And either you're very, very early in your postdoc or you're just about to graduate with your PhD and you want to skip the postdoc step or have a very abbreviated postdoc and launch your independent career. This is one way to do it. So let me pause here and see if anyone has questions after you've seen that website.
So this is Glenna, and I had a question about the Lasker. Can you go from, for example, if I'm at Emory, can I apply to the Lasker program, or do you have to be intramural to apply to the Lasker program?
You do not have to be intramural. You can apply from Emory. You can apply from an extramural institution.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Are there any others? Okay. Let me come back.
I have a question that was the same as one Catherine Breen asked about whether the Lasker, which it says on the website, only applies to physician scientists, which it says, or are nurses also available?
Nurses are,
can apply.
yes, nurses are also eligible to apply. And we have 2 nurse scientists who are Lasker clinical research scholars, as Sarah has indicated. So Sarah, do you want to unmute and say anything?
Yeah, no, it's a great program. And, I think it really kickstarts kind of your career in intramural. So Dr. Jessica Gill and Polly Joseph are the 2 NINR Lasker recipients, and they have amazing things to say about it. And so if you're interested, I would recommend to learn more and talk to the program officers for this program.
All right, great. And I'm going to try to keep my eye on the chat. I'm not sure if I'll be able to see it, but I'll try to come back and forth so I can answer questions. But Sarah's there, Delia, and Stephanie. So if you see a question, feel free to answer. Okay, so are you ready to go to the second website? The first website we went to is Intramural Research Program. So you can learn more about all the different types of research being done. I pointed you towards careers so you could know what, a possible next step for you is. But maybe some of you are looking to get more training. So let's go to the OITE site. That's www.training.nih.gov. So I'm going to go there. And this is the website for the NIH Office of Intramural Training and Education. They are the training office, the umbrella training office for all of the 27 institutes and centers at NIH. I'm the training director at NINR. So my purview is within NINR. Their purview is across NIH. And they have information on all the different types of fellowships that are available. So I'm just going to show you where you can find them, and I'm going to describe them in more detail later on in my talk. But if hopefully you can see my screen where I'm hovering over training programs. And then if you go to for prospective NIH trainees, then you can see all the different types of internships and fellowship programs that are available. And our panelists today will talk about, their entry into using different mechanisms, different fellowship types to learn about NIH intramural. So I'm going to leave it at that, but I want you to keep it up and feel free to browse and see what questions you might have. So I'm coming back to my presentation, and I've shared my screen, so hopefully you can see my presentation now. Okay, I'm not seeing a no. I'm not, okay. All right, so I've shown you about intramural opportunities. I did want to touch on extramural funding because that's where like 80% of our budget goes. And I want to make sure that you have the website and the resources to find more information. So at researchtraining.nih.gov, they have a wonderful timeline to help you figure out what funding opportunities match your career stage and your needs. And I think they even have a wizard to help take you through. So I'm just pointing to the website here, and then also introducing my colleague, Dr. David Banks, who oversees all the training grants, both the fellowship grants and the career development grants like the K grants. So he's a wonderful resource, so amazing to talk to, a wonderful mentor. And I'm listing a couple of the different types of fellowships that are available depending on your level of education. So if you're a pre-doc, you could write for an F31, or you could, here's the Early Independence Award. And these are just a few, that I'm sharing. For postdocs, there's the F32, and then there's the K99 Pathway to Independence Award. That allows for like 2 years of mentored research, and then you launch your independent career and you get 3 years of funding as a tenure track investigator. So as I told you at the beginning, NINR is developing its strategic plan, and I put the website here so you could go and visit. They're asking for feedback from the community. So if you have feedback, if there's some area that you really feel very strongly that NINR should focus on, or you want to support, or whatever feedback you have, I invite you to visit the website, and there's an email that you can send your comments to. So with that in mind, we're just going to keep in mind that NINR is undergoing some transition, and there are some job opportunities. So if you know anyone who wants to be a director, either of the extramural science programs, that's the extramural division, which funds grants to you and other universities. And then there's 2 positions within intramural. There's a clinical director that oversees all the clinical protocols, all the clinical aspects, IRBs, and research nurses. So that person would oversee all of that. The scientific director oversees all of the science. And then because we're looking to the future and thinking of bold ideas, they would also have an opportunity to help shape what the intramural research program would look like. And so these are all on the website, and you can go click on them and see what kinds of research areas and eligibility requirements there are. So let me tell you a little bit more about the different types of fellowships and internships that are available at NIH and NINR. We have summer interns, post-bac fellows, graduate, and postdoc. So let's go through a little bit one at a time. So for the summer internship, that allows from high school all the way to professional graduate students to come to NIH for 8 weeks to do research with an intramural PI, principal investigator. Applications are normally accepted mid-November to March, early March. And this past summer, it was all virtual because we weren't sure. There was so much uncertainty about vaccines that it was done virtual. No decision has been made yet for 2022, but they are accepting applications, and then a decision will be made later down the line to see, whether it'll be virtual, whether it'll be in person. And have some questions about this, because there are some panelists that can talk to you more about some of the programs within the summer internship. Then there's the NIH Post Baccalaureate program. This may not necessarily refer to you, because I think everyone here is either a graduate student, postdoc, or faculty. But if you know someone who is finishing up their bachelor's and they want to get some research experience, they can come to NIH in the Postbac Fellowship and have 1 up to 2 years of research experience. The application is a rolling basis, so there's really no deadline. And the goal for the postbac, once they finish their fellowship at NIH, is that they apply to graduate school, professional school, and they continue their schooling. For the Graduate Partnerships Program, this allows a graduate student to do their dissertation work at NIH with an NIH investigator. And the one that I'm highlighting here, it's called the Individual Partnership. This can be a little bit confusing because there's lots of different flavors of the Graduate Partnerships Program, but I think this is the one that will most refer to your needs. And what you do is you would look on the IRP, the Intramural Research Program website, to see what science is being done, see where there's a match, and then you could start writing to different investigators after talking to your primary mentor and department chair at Emory. Make sure that they're all on board and that they agree, that this seems like a good next step. So you talk with your committee and your primary mentor at Emory. You start looking for a match with science at NIH. And then if everything were to work out, then you could, and the NIH scientist says, okay, I have a spot for you. I can host you as a graduate student. Then you sign, you do a very short application, and there's some statements, a memorandum of understanding, so all parties understand what their roles and responsibilities are. And then you come on board to do your dissertation research at NIH. And I put the link to the website here so you could learn more about, more specifics. And then the last type of fellowship at NIH is postdoc. So you hold a doctoral degree, a terminal degree with no more than 5 years experience. And there's not an application process. You normally just contact the investigator directly. And it's a wonderful opportunity to learn about all the resources that are available. So you can do up to 5 years postdoc experience. This picture was taken at a Fellows Appreciation. So we had, not paid for with government funds, but we had donuts and fruit and juice and everything. And several of the postdocs here joined. So for instance, Letitia was our inaugural Robert Wood Johnson postdoc, and she has accepted a faculty position at Texas. Lori V is another postdoc, and she is, she just started a government position and staying on in career development. Rosario Jaime Lara is a postdoc with Dr. Joseph, and so she's investigating the effects or changes in taste and smell depending on different types of conditions, either if a participant is obese or becoming obese or has a drug abuse disorder. And then Marcus Tesfaye Wolde Johannes is part of the African Postdoc Training Initiative. So he did his 2 years at NIH, and then he's going to continue his postdoc in Ethiopia. So it's a wonderful program to train people from African nations to come to NIH and then go back and take that knowledge with them. This is just, just a small sampling of some of the postdocs and where they go. And you please feel free to ask more questions because Delia and Sarah are now both postdocs. So I wanted to also draw your attention to the NINR YouTube channel. Last summer, we had a panel session with Dr. Patty Brennan, Leo Saligan, and Polly Joseph to talk about their career trajectory and their science. And so it's there on the YouTube channel, and you can view it and see how they created their program of research. It's got a lot of really good tips and ideas for your own career trajectory. And then I also wanted to bring up the boot camp. So in addition to enabling and helping our intramural trainees achieve their next step, I also run the boot camp series. And this year we're going to do it over 3 Mondays. It's entirely virtual. Next Monday is the first session on innovations and improvements in health outcomes. And I put the website here. Registration has already closed. So if you haven't registered, you will not, it's already closed, but we do have a live stream link that's available on the website. So if you did want to tune in, you can tune in using the live stream, and we'll also archive this to the YouTube channel. And the main focus, the main theme throughout all 3 sessions is how to identify bias and mitigate its negative effects to promote equity for all. So it's going to be an interesting session with all of our speakers and moderators. Another event at NINR is the Director's Lecture. So Dr. Mi-Kyung Song will be talking on September 14th on addressing one of the most enduring challenges in healthcare, end-of-life decision-making. So please tune in to the Director's Lecture, and that's also going to be live streamed. And there was, I also wanted to touch on the Training Pathways Working Group. And everything is on the website, so you can learn more information about the charge, the working group, and what the recommendations are. But basically, the charge was to identify what the strengths and challenges are for nurse scientists in their career trajectory, and then provide leadership with recommendations and information to help bring down any barriers that exist, and then really promote a very robust nursing science career trajectory. So I put the link here so you can learn more about that effort. And I'm going to close by saying thank you for this opportunity. And my email is here if you have any questions, and I'm going to stop sharing. And I want to introduce very briefly our 3 panelists because they're going to give more information about themselves. But before I do that, are there any questions?
So Pamela, I guess this is more of a logistics question, and maybe our participants can speak to it, but how does one navigate the relocation time to actually be there at NINR with regard to living, housing, and all of that?
That's a good question because it's a big commitment to relocate. And I'm going to touch on a couple of things, but I'm going to ask my panelists to elaborate. There's a guide that was written by the Office of Intramural Training and Education. It's called Moving to NIH, and I provide that once someone has accepted the position and they'll be here. I send that guide. I try to introduce them to a peer mentor and get them involved as early as possible into the intramural training community so they feel some connection and then can get kind of the word on the street from their peers, like, okay, what's what? Where should I go? What's a good place? What's a good neighborhood? Should I be near the metro? That sort of thing. So let me just introduce our panelists quickly, and then they can tell a little bit about their background and help answer that question. So I'm just going to say in the order I see them on the screen. Dr. Delia Sass joined NINR as a graduate student in the Graduate Partnerships Program. And now she's a postdoc, and she's got a new opportunity that she's going to continue her postdoc training, and she'll talk on that. Stephanie Chittister is a current graduate student. She's a partner with the University of Missouri St. Louis, and she'll talk about her research and how she found training at NIH, like, where did she plug in? And then Dr. Sara Matani was also a graduate student. Our partner was University of Illinois, Chicago, and now she's a postdoc, and she'll be able to tell you about how she found NIH. So maybe if we can first address Dr. Dunbar's question about how you found housing, how you relocated, and then if all three of you can answer, and then talk a little bit about your background.
I would just like to say I asked that just because I think that's a hump people have to get over before they can really get into thinking about what is the science I could really do at NIH, because that's where the excitement is. It's logistics that hold us back sometimes. Thank you.
I can go ahead and jump in on the question. Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you for inviting us for this roundtable. So my name is Delia Sass, and I am originally the partner with the University of Nebraska Medical Center. And I did 2 years of predoctoral work at my university, and then I moved to Bethesda, Maryland to complete my dissertation. And just to jump in and ask your question, when I was moving, before I moved, I actually conducted multiple informational interviews with previous GPP students who did move to Bethesda to figure out logistics. I've also traveled to NINR to attend NINR bootcamp to learn more about the opportunities. Like you said, it's a pretty major decision logistically to move across the country and relocate your family. While attending the sessions and identifying mentors that solidified my intention to make the jump and move, I was connected through some of the resources at NIH intramurally OIT, and they have like a Gmail link, listserv where they connect all the graduate students essentially moving to the area. There were some listings for housing. There was one opportunity for me to investigate the costs. And because I was moving with my family and moving my husband across the country, we actually ended up looking at the apartments closer to us, investigating the costs and making the decision that way. So that was my trajectory, and just basically got a U-Haul and moved all our stuff to Bethesda, Maryland, and I started my fellowship. I know he was a bit uncertain about my move, but he ended up getting a job in the area and it worked out for the good. So it is definitely a phase and a jump, which is why I was very thorough in interviewing others who went through the program before making the decision.
I'm Stephanie Chittister, and I am a PhD student from University of Missouri, St. Louis, and I have participated in several programs at NIH and specifically with NINR. While doing my coursework, I participated in the Summer Genetics Institute, and the following summer I did a summer internship with one of the investigators at NINR, and subsequently applied to the Graduate Partnerships Program, which I am in the process of completing. And I will be starting a postdoctoral fellowship in 2022, also at NIH. So as Pam mentioned, with regard to the finding housing, I did use that NIH guide for all three of my experiences. The short term was probably a little more challenging than the finding long-term housing here. But a couple of things I want to mention is that, at least in the past, with the fellowships, NIH does help with some of the moving expenses. And though it probably depends on the type of fellowship. And also, it is expensive to live in the DC metro area. And there are moderately priced housing programs available in Montgomery County in Maryland. And so there are ways that you can manage it and make it more feasible.
Hey, hi everyone. My name is Sarah. I also did some previous work at the NIH, but I did my graduate partnership program through the University of Illinois, Chicago. Now I'm a postdoc and hopefully transitioning out into an independent scientist position. So I also came to the NIH during between my first and second year of the PhD program to do the GSOR. So it's a Graduate Summer Opportunities and Research Program, and it's cross NIH. And it's really unique because they bring on about like 20 to 25 multidisciplinary PhD students. And the objective is to expose you to different sciences and fields, to show and like to teach you how everyone plays a role in the science moving forward, whether you're doing molecular research, whether you're doing the pharmaceutical development, but it kind of helps put into perspective where you fit into the bigger picture of science, right? So when I came to that program, I also went through the NIH OITE, so the Office of Intramural Training department to find housing. The great thing about being in this area is that finding summer housing isn't really that bad, because they have like houses that you can get like rooms, and there's like a Facebook page where you can see where people have rooms available, and the transportation is pretty decent if you don't have a car. So I never had a car, so I just got my first car, yay. But I used to take the train and the buses, and it's great. The system's great. NIH reimburses you for your transportation, so that's free, so that's good. And honestly, you can find nice houses, you can find a house, you can rent a room. So I feel like there's a lot of opportunities to kind of come to the summer and feel it out, whether the area is for you. But then when I moved, at that time, I was just by myself. So I just looked around and found an area that I liked. And that was pretty much places that, I could go eat and study in a little Starbucks and stuff. So it's a pretty nice area. And if you're interested, I really recommend coming down and seeing it. Hopefully things will become in person again. So the NIH will start hosting events, and just, take some time and come take a look. It's a great place to be. And even if you don't move, it's amazing to see what the NIH is and the resources that are here.
Are there other questions?
No, I was just going to add that the metro is so easy from national to the NIH, so it's a straight shot, which if you're wondering about how to get there, Bethesda sounds outside of DC, but it's really easy.
Yeah.
So I have a question for the panelists, and that is, how did you go about finding, your match with your mentor and methods? And I guess I'm thinking, like the first year of your PhD program, you're learning a lot of things, and you're kind of trying to solidify your question. So then when you moved into selecting a mentor, did you find someone in that same area or the same population or the same methods? How did you match up?
I can answer that question first. So, when I started my PhD program, I had a pretty decent idea, like many of us do, right? Okay, I'm interested in learning, I'm focused in sleep, right? So, I'm interested in looking at sleep as a symptom as well as cognition and long-term. So for me, what really helped me was to just look through NINR, but as well as all of the intramural investigators, and kind of do Control F searches to see who was popping up, and really look through their literature to see if that's where I would fit in. But also, And then obviously I emailed them and asked, can I have an informational interview? And the really great thing is most of the time people say yes, right? Like this is a learning, like an educational learning environment. So people do support mentorship greatly. One other thing that, I can elaborate on a little bit is that for me, it didn't have to be like a direct match, right? So I was interested in more about learning methods, and I wanted an environment that would immerse me in the methodology so that I can then make my own independent line of research along with my PI. So it wasn't a complete match, but I learned the methodology, the skills, everything I needed to kind of immerse that in my line of research. But definitely doing informational interviews, reading recently published articles, and just looking on the website was really helpful for me.
Just to echo what Sarah said and also add to it, my match also was not the direct. My goal was in identifying gaps in my training from my universities and what I wanted to learn going forward. And for me, it was wet lab experiences and specifically more of a basic science to enrich my knowledge from nursing coming into the research. So I did look at NINR current investigators and read, just like Sarah, what the research was about. However, my strong interest was, are they studying at the time inflammation? Are they looking at biomarkers? And my strong interest was in symptoms and symptom science. That brought me to Dr. Leroy Saligan, and he actually was the person I interviewed during my GPP interview process, which ended up being an excellent match. However, when we think about nursing, the first year when we're identifying our concepts, I came from a cardiac ICU background, and Dr. Saligan's research was specifically cancer survivors. So I had to change the population. However, the goal was to gain transferable skills, like Sarah was mentioning, and the transferable skills meant I still got a great exposure in the lab, 2 years, where I learned a lot about inflammation and proteins and cytokines and learned hands-on experiences. So it's very important to identify what your goals are and what are the gaps and objectives you seek to fulfill throughout the training.
I agree with what Zara and Delia have said. And like Delia, like all of us, I don't think the match I identified was perfect, but I went through that same process of reading through the bios and the publications of NINR researchers who might be a potential match. And once I interviewed, I was able to get a better idea of which investigators would be a better fit. But once I was accepted and was in discussions with my primary mentor at NINR, I found that I was also able to identify and find other mentors outside of NINR, so at NIDDK and NCI, who were able to, as a team, provide all of the necessary background and expertise that I needed to complete my research projects. So that's one of the advantages of being at NIH, is that there's such a wealth of expertise available and so many people who are willing to participate as mentors.
There's a question in the chat from Jasmine. Can anyone talk more about the 8-week summer internship? What could we expect from that program if interested?
I could speak to that as well, since I participated in it. So it's an immersive experience, I would say. I participated in this, of course, before COVID. So it was in person, and although I had bench research experience previously, it was kind of in the, it was many years ago. and I really needed a kind of a refresher. So I was able to jump in and with a postdoc fellow, I was able to plan out a research project, relatively small in scope, that I was able to complete, and during that 8-week period, at the end of which I presented a research poster. It's really invaluable, and so there are a variety of opportunities available once we're back in person again. There are clinical projects, lab projects. Anyway, so it's, as I mentioned, it goes pretty fast. It's 2 months is not a lot of time to complete experiments or do a clinical project and report your results, but it's a great experience. And it looks like Jasmine asked that question. Do you have any follow-up questions for me?
No, thank you so much for just explaining your experience. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I can add a little bit more to Jasmine, just for graduate students that might be on the call. So you can apply for more of like a structured program, like I mentioned before, GSOAR. So it's like G dash and then SOAR, SOAR. So if you like Google that with NIH, you can see a little bit more. And that was more of a structured interdisciplinary program where they provided different types of training along the way as part of that program. But like Stephanie, it's very similar. Like you identify a mentor when you apply for the program. And then that's when I started working with Dr. Jessica Gill at NINR. And you identify a project and you work alongside a postdoc or a research fellow or a scientist, and you work on that project throughout. So you learn a lot of skills. You learn, how the ins and outs of NIH intramural stuff works, because it is an adjustment from extramural, but also you have the opportunity to, present your poster, maybe get a publication out of it, meet other fellows and students. And it's a really great way to, understand or, figure out whether a more full-time position like a LASC or STADMIN or a postdoc is something of interest to you. So I would really recommend it. Again, that was just the one program that I did. There's probably others out there, maybe through different institutes. This one was specifically through the training, OITE, so Office of Intramural Training, but sometimes the larger institutes may have their own summer training programs as well. That would be a really good opportunity too. The great thing about the NIH is that if you're thinking there's an opportunity, there probably is one, because it's so big. So if you don't know how to find it, I would reach out to like Pam or somebody else and just email them and be like, hey, I'm interested in this. Do you have anything like that? And I guarantee you, if they don't know, they'd be more than happy to direct you to somebody who would know, and that can help you find it. So it really is its own world, and there's so many opportunities within it to find training for even 8 weeks or 12 weeks or whatever you want to as part as your experience of your research experience.
I know one of the questions that I get asked a lot is NIH feels like such a monolith, it's just this structure. How do you even get in? How do you find a contact? So maybe the three of you can share. I know Sarah talked about GSOAR, but then Sarah, you did some additional networking to find, where you would land. And Delia, I remember when you were finding different mentors, both you and Stephanie. Like maybe you could talk a little bit more about the process of how you found your mentors and how you made that connection. And before they answer, I'm also going to share a website So Sarah mentioned, contacting me. You're absolutely welcome. And there's also training directors at all the other institutes. So I'm going to share that link so you have a contact list there as well. So Sarah, maybe if you can start.
Yeah, so the NIH, if you're not in it, it looks very scary. It's because I was also on the outside, right, looking in. And, one thing that I think we forget when we think about government institutes, what makes NIH so unique, it is a training heavy environment, right? They want to train future scientists and share their knowledge. So really taking that, for me, it was really just taking that leap of faith and applying or contacting, the Office of Intramural Training and say, hey, I'm interested in this, but, GSOR, it didn't have any nurses. And I was like, are nurses even qualified for this? Because there was no nursing present. And they said, we've never really had one because nobody has applied, but, why don't you go ahead and apply? And so, it really I didn't just take it for face value, right? Like what I read. Sometimes if we're not included, it might just be because we weren't at the forefront of it, but that doesn't mean we're not welcome to participate in these types of training programs. So that's one thing that I learned was to ask the training directors or the program directors, this is their job. They love to, recruit people and tell people what a great opportunity is. So if you're interested, just go ahead and just take a leap of faith and say, hi, this is, I'm Sarah and here's my CV. And, I'm so excited about your opportunity and I'd love to be at the NIH. Can we have a 30-minute talk? So, that's how I kind of broke into it. And then once you're here, you're really just blossom, right? Like you see, all the different opportunities you have, all the things you can learn. I mean, there's so many things and classes you can take and different training programs and boot camps and working with different members, which I think Delia and Stephanie can talk about a little bit more, having that real trans NIH experience. So I hope that was helpful.
So I have a question about what you leave this experience with. So you're going to have some fantastic training in different methods and different areas of science, cutting edge, exciting things. Do you leave with some of the expected things like a grant, a written grant or a publication, or what are sort of the outcomes of your scholarship that happen at NIH?
So I really think it depends on the type of training program that you're doing. But for instance, let's say if I was doing just the 8 to 12 week program, one, you're leaving with the invaluable experience of that project. So whether that be the methodology that you're using, you can take that with you. So let's say I learned how to do some type of sequencing analysis while I was here. I can now take that and back to my institute and use it in my future projects moving forward. Maybe you conduct a pilot study during your 8 to 12 weeks. You may not like a lab experiment or something that provides you with pilot data that can, then be used for your future grants, but you can then say, hey, I have this experience, I got this training. The other thing is you gain mentors, you gain networks, you grow your network, right? And when you go back to your institute, that doesn't just mean your doors closed to the NIH, right? You can still communicate with your mentors. Maybe you're going to write a paper with the people that you worked with in the summer. You can add them to your grants, right? So there's so many things that come out of it more than just your 8 weeks. It really is this lifelong kind of resources you can take with you moving forward.
I feel like Sarah answered that question really well. I can add if you are a graduate student, because I transitioned from GPP into a postdoc, I did gain, I disseminated the knowledge by presenting my scholarly work at NIH intramural conferences, but also regionally and nationally. So I strongly encourage to present the research that we are doing at NIH. I also was able to publish the dissertation papers that came out of my work at NIH, and you get unmeasurable support from your mentors to continue and make sure that you get those publications, presentations, podium where there are all posters. And of course, if you are in a postdoc stage, we had a few people who did grants and then transitioned into faculty positions while they were at NIH, they were writing K-99s and ROOs. So depending on the stage, there's definitely a productive outcome to as a benefit in addition to the mentorship. For me, the mentorship was the most invaluable, and to add, while you are within NIH, not only you're able to gain mentors within the nursing institute, what was most important to me, I also gained mentors within other institutes by emailing them and, like Sarah said, asking them to talk to me for 20-30 minutes. And I was just at awe and inspired by how willing some of the senior investigators across NIH are to sit down with a nursing student and listen to my research subject when I send them a proposal and say, you know what, I will support you. I'm here for the training and I'm here to see you succeed. That I think is the most important thing that happens for us as neuroscientists to advance our careers. So the emphasis and the biggest valuable outcome for me was to establish the interdisciplinary circle of mentors. So, and have them support me and each contribute to my growth individually.
I would just add that, so Sarah and Delia have talked about the networking opportunities, developing a circle of mentors that's going to continue with you throughout your career. But at NIH, you are also immersed in too many actually educational and training experiences, more than you could ever participate in while you're here. There are special interest groups across institutes here, and there are talks pretty much every day of the week, learning from and networking with investigators here. And also the training seminars, like grant writing seminars, and being immersed in and educated about the different opportunities for applying for grants for when you're transitioning from, say, postdoc to an independent career. I've just found that there's a real wealth of opportunities available to fellows here.
Well, you've all made this experience sound so very appealing, and it sounds like you would just be like a kid in a candy shop with so many opportunities to train and to learn, to be immersed in exciting things, and to also, select from in terms of seminars and those types of things. So I think I just really appreciate all of the expertise. Pamela, you put some things in the chat. Do you want to just mention those? And
yeah, so when Delia was starting to talk about disseminating their research, of course, they're publishing and presenting results at scientific conferences, but they also had an opportunity to give like what they call a SciBite. And it's only like a 2 or 3 minute video to describe their research so that they can reach a broad audience. So I put those links in the chat. And I also put a link to the training director contacts at other institutes. So in case you're interested, you can talk to them. So that's like one entry point at least. So to break down NIH, because of course NIH is this big, 40,000 strong number of people that work here, but we're made of people. And this is one way for you to connect it.
okay, other questions? Well, if not, I would just like to thank our panelists for being here today. Was there one coming forward?
Oh, no, it wasn't a question. This is Glenn. I just had a comment. that I just wanted to say that I think regardless, even if you don't pursue like a long-term opportunity there, that just even if it's a 1 week or a 2 week training course, being on the campus itself does something for you that I think motivates you to see what you can do, what impact you can have. So I encourage anybody to take advantage of the opportunity, especially when you're just starting out.
Thank you, Glenna. Firsthand experience. So, well, I just really appreciate you all taking the time today and making things sound so very exciting and appealing. And I hope that we'll be able to work out logistics for someone who really wants to apply. Don't let that stop you. The School of Nursing has resources that they can use to help you make the application, as well as figure out how to make it work for you. So just if this tweaks your interest, please do follow through and not be intimidated. It sounds wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Really, I think some people have class, so you'll see them starting to drop off, but really appreciate it, Pamela, and all of the panelists, Stephanie, Sarah, Delia. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Okay.
And thank you.
Thank you.